try to get to everybody's questions. I think probably one of the most exciting just coffee with the Mingos we have, just because of the power-packed panel we have today. Three guys who are kind of legends in their own right in American soccer. So we'll give some brief introductions here. First up, Mr. Eric Wynalda, 106 times capped the U.S. national team, 34 goals, 3 World Cups, first ever goal scorer in Major League Soccer. Currently head coach, technical director of the Las Vegas Lights. Eric, how you doing?
I'm here. I'm drinking my my coffee. Can you get a good shot of that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. This is Wake the Flock Up. So
that's right. Awesome.
Yes, yours is on the way.
Okay. Yeah, to get to Austria. But up next we have Mr. Jesse Marsch, MLS Cup champion with DC United, Chicago Fire, 6th all-time Chicago Fire regular season appearance holder, coach of the year in 2015 with the New York Red Bulls, got the Supporters Shield there. Currently head coach Red Bull Salzburg, thrilling UEFA Champions League campaign this fall. I think we all saw the famous video on YouTube. And most importantly though, Jesse is a Wisconsin native, one of us. Jesse, how are things over in Austria?
Good. It's a little later here, so I have a beer, and it's go the flock to bed.
And then third guest, man who needs no introduction, the man who was born to coach. 18 of his 24 professional seasons, reaching the playoffs with teams he's been a part of, 3 Open Cup championships, Supporters Shield, 2 MLS Cup finals. The gaffer, our head coach and technical director, Daryl. Daryl, how you holding up?
Hanging in there. Blackjack and I have only done 3 walks today, and I'm drinking white. No, it's not White Claw, but it's something to keep me going through the afternoon.
Looks good. Looks good. So we had a bunch of fan questions. I know a lot of you guys submitted them to me. So I'm just going to get them by the emails, the order of the emails I've received. So first up, we have Mr. Keith Ponywaz, the first question for the day.
So the first question I have is, Jesse, is the Highbury the greatest soccer bar in America?
Yeah, I would actually say yes. Eric, yeah, you probably would know. Daryl, have you been there?
I actually have not been, but I very well know of it.
Okay.
So, are you the most famous person to go in there, or is it Peter?
Oh, Peter Wild.
Yeah.
I mean,
Peter's more famous when he gets there.
Yeah, I make occasional, like once every 5-year cameo. Like Peter lives there, you know. It's a football pub in Milwaukee, Eric. So my brother worked there. It's friends of my brother that own it and run it. And my brother worked there for, I don't know, maybe 3 years. And so typically when we would go home, they have an amazing Boxing Day, right? Kuba, I think that's probably the last time we saw each other.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have a restraining order against Kuba's brother from the last time you saw him, because you had just been hired at the Red Bulls.
Okay.
And he hugged you several times. My real question, other than I want to know if and this is kind of open, because Eric, of your experience in Germany, in terms of developing youth players, what does Red Bull do differently at Salzburg and Leipzig in your experience than Red Bull was doing in the U.S. kind of more generally? And what do you think the U.S. needs to do to improve its training of young talent?
Yeah, so I mean, there's I think a lot of this starts from back, the book written Das Reboot, when they changed a lot of the rules. So even when I moved to Leipzig, my youngest son went right into playing youth football there, and so he was 11 years old when we arrived, and they had all kinds of amazing little rules in the game that just allowed the flow of the game to be better. They have no offsides, they have no linesmen. The kids call their own fouls, the kids call out of bounds. They take goal kicks from the top of the 18. They play on small fields. They play 8v8 until they're like U14. So just the way they format even the games themselves means that it has more flow, and it's more about just playing. And then the training sessions that they had 3 training sessions a week, and then once a week was just technical, and my son hated it. Like it was Monday night and they would do just technical for an hour and a half. But by the time we left Germany, his technique and his ability with the ball was so much better. And so, you know, I mean, it's certainly some of the things they do with training and games and stuff. And then it's just the culture. These kids live the culture. You know, it's like if you're the best part about German football is the fan culture and the passion that's behind the game. And it's passed down from generation to generation. I mean, Eric, obviously, you were here. And so, you know, that Daryl was here for the basketball culture, which I think is also interesting because I think I've been to some basketball games here that are in Germany that almost mimicked what they do with the football matches. So yeah, I mean, that's what was, I think it's an ingrained part of the way that they do things.
Eric, could you imagine if we let Jesse or you guys call the fouls in 2001 in the fire training sessions? We never got through a session.
I never fouled anybody, Daryl.
I remember when Novak kicked Bob in the face. He just decided to get in a little possession one day, and he had to get on the airplane with like just cut all across his face because Peter just went straight in. There's no fouls. I mean, I think what Stoichkov said it best. He goes, "There's no referee here. Why would we call a foul? There's no refs. It was a free for all."
Awesome. Thank you. Josh Ranft. I think Josh, you had a question as well.
Oh, hey guys. Yeah, so my question for all three of you, so it's open, is as coaches, when you first started out coaching, what was the motivator to keep going, to keep learning, to just keep wanting to do it?
Wow.
Go, Daryl.
Well, I mean, again, I think I said this the other day in a podcast. I always thought I was going to be a basketball coach, but being 5'6" short and a couple of other things, there was no chance. But you know, it was really the challenge to get better every day. And as a young coach, when I was a head coach in New Orleans, I got my first chance there. I really didn't know what that was really about until probably 2000, 2001. And then you get with a group like we had with the Fire, and you work with Bob and you know, the coaching staff they had there, but not just the coaching staff, the players. And obviously Jesse and Eric were a part of this, but every day in training, the guys pushed each other and challenged each other to get better. And that made me, as a young coach, just see how those guys would interact with each other and challenge each other and push each other. I knew in coaching that was something that I wanted to get out of my players. And the one thing, our theme this year with our club is each and every day in training and when we leave the field, what have we done today to get better that will make myself better as an individual and will make us better as a team? And that's kind of our MO this year. And I think that's kind of where I go as a coach, still evolving every day to try and push the issue and get better.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
Eric, Eric, you answer. I actually would like to hear this from Eric.
What inspires me or
what motivated you to become a coach?
I don't know if you remember this, Jesse, but when I was in television and I was doing that stupid phone-in show, you came on the show and you basically challenged me on live television. So thanks for that. But the answer that I didn't give you then is because I don't think I really had an answer at that point. But I'd be the first one to say is I took the easy route. I've always wanted to manage. I always wanted to coach. I would have never believed that in my playing days because I was a player that was coached by so many different influences. I look back at it in a 13-year career. I had 29 coaches. That's too much. That's just too much. But I had all this experience from how seeing so many people do it wrong and do it right, or just gathering information. But when I went into television, it was something that was a decision that I consciously made, that to take a lot of money and to be a good dad, to be around my family and to make a really good living and not to really pay my dues. When I was young, when I was 34, 35 years old, I think there was a part of me that was still bitter from the way that my career ended. So it made great television, but it certainly wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't something that I really enjoyed as much as I enjoy the work that I do now. I think that to answer your question, it's the work. It's the work is just rolling up your sleeves every day and getting with a young, impressionable kid who can be so much better if they're armed with the right information. It's easy to sit in a booth or on a headset and criticize everybody and say, well, I would have done it differently. And not until I really took Jesse's advice and said, all right, well, what can I do? What do I want to do? And how can I implement that? That's when my life kind of got better to a certain extent. But I did spend 15 years doing television. I don't look at it as a waste of time, but I did in those years in between where I could dedicate some of my time to getting involved, whether it be helping Bob or Bruce or even Jurgen to a certain extent as an assistant. That's kind of what just relit the fire for me to be around the game and to be a part of it every day. That's what I really enjoy. Being able to work 2 times on a weekend and pick up your kids at school every day that's the sacrifice I made because I wanted to be a good dad. But I don't look at it as a sacrifice. I can't change that. I'm really glad I got to raise the kids the way I did. But now that I'm in it, now that I'm really in it, and I get to be around the game again and enjoy the failures and the successes of it all. It's my DNA. That's what I was meant to do.
That's an incredible answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Jesse, do you want to?
Just thank Jesse for all that, for saying, hey.
By the way, I do remember that.
No, you embarrassed the crap out of me. That wasn't fun.
No, Kuba, let's go to the next one.
All right, yeah. Eric Anderson. Eric, what's up?
Hey, how we doing, everybody?
Good.
Hey, there has been one U.S. men's national team game in Wisconsin ever, and Eric played in that game.
Yep.
It was in 1990. Eric, do you have any memories of that game?
Yeah, Ted X scored an amazing goal. It was unbelievable. I remember all of that because Bob Gansler at the time was our coach, and of course he is also we affectionately call him a cheesehead. But the reality of that whole week was awesome because we were exposed to this culture that was surrounding the game, and it was against what was called then the DDR. That was a East German team. Some former teammates of mine actually played in that game. Daryl Shore played in that game. I think Ulf Kirsten played in the game. But Ted Eck, out of nowhere, just unbelievable. Dribbled everybody and put it in the top corner. It was a great memory. But it was the last time East Germany played as East Germany. It was just before the wall went down. So it was an interesting uniform to have.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Next question was from Logan Deeney. Logan, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is open for everyone. With the situation we're in right now, how are you going to take this experience and add it to who you are as like a leader and what you're trying to accomplish in your long-term goals as a coach?
I'll go. Yeah, I'll go. So the first thing for me is that it's been amazing to spend so much time with our family. So, our kid, my daughter's 18, and I have 2 sons that are 16 and 12. So they're going to be, moving out of the house soon. And my daughter's actually spent her last year in high school still in Leipzig. And then she's going to university next year in the UK. So, we've had 6-7 weeks here in the house. Austria is starting to now release some of the restrictions, and we've actually had 2 days of training. I don't know how much really applies to football other than how much we appreciate our lifestyle and how much we get to like the passion and love that we have for what we do. I was on Austrian television on Sunday, and the only thing I said was, you know, sport clearly is not as important as life and death right now, you know, and what's happening in society. But I always feel like the role of sport is not just to give people balance in their lives, but inspiration. And you know, when the government has handled everything here so well. The people have followed the rules. Things are so calm here. Like it's amazing. I think today it got announced in a country of 9 million people that there were 52 new cases. So, you know, things have really calmed down. And I think it's time, even though we're going to play without fans, to be the example in the country right now, to give people inspiration, to be role models, you know, and our club has done a lot in the community to help people and help some hospitals, and the players that voluntarily committed 20% of their salaries for 3 months to help take care of the community and the club. So, you know, I mean, but this is kind of what it's like in Austria. The heart of the people here is so amazing. So, yeah, I mean, in the end, I feel like, you know, it's strange times, but I hope that we can get back to playing again, and it'll give something for people to actually look forward to watching on TV, to rooting for their teams, to enjoying, you know, the passion of the sport here. So that's the big thing for me.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah.
Daryl, Eric, do you guys have any thoughts kind of how this will kind of
Go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for us, it's the kind of the same. What we, you know, because our country is a lot bigger than Austria, and we have so many governors that want to do their own thing, and a president that wants to do everything. It's kind of, for us, it's what can we do to give back to our city, and therefore our state. So, you know, this has obviously been an unknown for all of us. It's something that I don't think as coaches, any of us ever imagined having to go through. But for us, it's just trying to keep the players' mind sharp. And obviously, you know, our fans have been great, and our front office, once again, has done some amazing things to try and contribute to the food banks and to the medical providers by trying to do as many fundraisers. You know, for me personally, what's it going to do for me to you know, when we get back on the field, again, we talk about making each other better every day to make our team better. And we've challenged our players through these Zoom chats and through other things to kind of go outside the box and really think about what life really means. It is sport is it's just a game. And I agree with Jeff that, you know, it's a big part of our lives. Obviously, it's a big part of our city with our fan base and what we were able to accomplish last year. And hopefully when we get on the field again, we can give back to them by giving everybody something cheerful to think about. But right now, it's really just making sure that our players are doing the right things at home to stay safe and making sure that our players are healthy, so we're able to get back on the field and provide a comfortable place for our fans to be able to come to.
For sure. Thank you.
Well, I mean, look, I'm to answer that as well. As far as the leadership component of it, it has been a challenge because usually, you know, you got an issue with a guy or there's an issue in the team. You grab him, you get in your office, you go talk to him. And you can't do that right now. So to reiterate what Daryl just said is you try to monitor them. We tried to take advantage of the situation in a sense that we knew that there were some preseason testing that we had done. So we had some guys that had some issues. So we addressed everything on an individual basis, that we could make sure that when they came back, that they would be able to address those things. Because normally in the USL, you don't have a big preseason. You don't have the ability to really address everything that you want to do. But because of this break, it is a blessing to some of the guys who had injuries coming in, that they'll be able to be fit and healthy when they're ready to go. But it's just management, it's time management, and it's just making sure everybody's coordinated and taking care of their mind and their spirit. That's really the job at the moment. And I think we're getting closer to getting some information on whether we'll be back on the field. But it'll feel normal again. But for the time being, we just have to be, all of us have to be good leaders to make sure that everyone doesn't lose sight of what they're trying to accomplish and what the objectives of the club are.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great answers. Dan Fallon, you up next.
Daryl, we talked for 45 minutes the other day, so I don't have any questions for you. Jesse, just a comment as a Liverpool supporter, I think you raised a few eyebrows with those 2 matches in the fall, so well done. You're a name that people know now. And actually, Eric, I was going to ask a different question that was kind of covered earlier, and you mentioned your time in television, and as somebody who I guess had the pleasure of watching some of those Fox football phone-in shows way back in the day when it was kind of a lifeline for U.S. soccer fans. What did you see as the change in broadcasting over that 15 years in terms of investment or the professionalism of it, or who, like, you know, it's really changed quite a bit. I mean, from that time to now, and I'm just curious how you saw that through your eyes and whether you saw it as a positive.
Definitely a positive in our country. That's a great question, because I think mainly it's culture. I think the culture that did not exist maybe at the start of the season, or it was a forced culture, or it was like a bunch of kids that were like a part of a chemistry group club in high school, and there was like 5 or 6 of them, and they just would walk around and they had this little thing that they did, and all of a sudden chemistry became cool. So now everybody's into it. And I love what's happening and you see this in Europe, and Jesse's living this, because the responsibility and it's not just an obligation. It's a wonderful opportunity, but the culture that now exists in each individual club with each identity and that they have is the one thing that stands out the most. That you can actually see a team play now, and it's an identifiable idea of the fabric of what that team is all about, or what that club is all about. So I see that a lot in Germany in my time in the Bundesliga, and I think it still exists today. And Leipzig is one hell of a place to live. I commend you for that. It's changed a lot. So when I was there, you can imagine what that place was like. But as you go through the country, the one thing that always was consistent in Germany was this passion and just unbelievable support system that each club had. It's finally there in America. So it actually elevates the responsibility of the player, that they understand not just the money that's spent and the resources that we have and the facilities that are now available and the information technologically, what we're able to know about our players. Our players are understanding now that this is far more important than they ever thought it would be. And it's up to them now to aspire, to be ambitious, and to take advantage of this unbelievable platform to get better. So, I look at, not to pat you on the back even more, Jesse, but some of the players that came out of Red Bull, with Tyler, for example, a guy that was like literally from such a young age to have all of that, whether he hated the technical trainings or not. That's a kid that you see this trajectory of doing things right and the reward of that. So that's what we now have. That's the endeavor that every club should be aspiring to do, is to figure out ways to make sure that they keep that message clean, they keep the identity of their clubs, and they produce players that will be valuable assets, whether they stay with the club or leave.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, obviously it was definitely this when we played that coaches didn't play young players, right? They just thought they were inexperienced and they couldn't handle it. And that was definitely the case at New York before I came. And then even when you go to Germany and you see the way they engage young players, the way they think of a 16-year-old not as like a young player, but like potential, and they see it. And at Leipzig, sometimes one of the things that we would fall into is that a 22-year-old player was almost too old, right? So like, think about like how you can do a 180 flip and the different now dynamic of how you think about potential and how you think about development and what you think of players. And the other part, Eric, that I absolutely loved, and we have it in Austria, but obviously not to the same extent. The fan culture in Germany is Wahnsinn. It is crazy. And that's, for me, what made the league so fun is every game was sold out. Every game, every fan base had an identity. Every coach had an identity. Every team had an identity. Every club. And it made preparation fun, but it certainly made game day fun because the stadium atmosphere was always awesome. So, you know, you're right. We've made so many huge leaps and bounds and progress in every area of the sport. And sometimes I think that, you know, as Americans, we want it to be everything right now, you know, but I actually think the path of progress has been amazing. And it's been fun to be a part of, you know, and watch it go over the years. TV's been a part of it. I mean, I remember I saw some highlights on Twitter or something. They showed the 96 final last year, right? It was 25 years. And they showed, it was Phil Shane and
Ikeo.
And
Bill McDermott on the sidelines with
all these
the party fart.
Graphics, the ties, you know, but and then how we covered the game and what the game was. And it's really cool to see, you know, how far it's come. But I mean, Eric, you know, whether you want to say it, you helped evolve broadcasting as well. I felt like you were one of the first guys to actually say what you think and not be always political. And that hurt you in some ways, but that made you really good at that job. So, yeah, I think you deserve a lot of credit.
Now I have to wait for all the people that I offended to die before I can get hired. That's the next step.
You got some time. You got
some time. And I'm not getting any younger. This is not a fun process, folks.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Next question we had from John Dolazar.
Hey, guys. Thank you all for doing this. Really appreciate it. It's super cool to have some American legends chatting with the Mingos here today. Jesse, I'm your same age, grew up in suburban Milwaukee, so I watched you play in high school.
Okay.
How cool was it for you to watch from afar last year to see the runaway success they had in Madison, you know, both from on field, but also at the box office and from a marketing standpoint specifically?
Yeah. So, I mean, Madison, I mean, you know, when we were younger, they had the 56ers, and that club, I mean, I remember even when I was like 12 that you know, there was like the Kickers, then there was remember the Miller All-Stars, and
Yep.
then they had the 56ers. And then when I got a little bit older, we started playing the 56ers, and there were some good players up there, and we had some fun. And my wife went to Madison, so I spent a bit of time up there. Daryl came to Leipzig last year. When he came, he brought a scarf. He brought some different things for us. So, you know, between Daryl hooking us up with some gear and then, you know, being a good friend of Daryl, we followed what was going on back there. And yeah, it was really cool to see that, you know, that pop up and see the passion. I've known in Wisconsin that there is football passion, you know, it's sometimes underground. Last week I did a Zoom call with Bob Spielman and Bavarian Soccer Club, and actually Bob Gansler was in on it.
Nice.
You know, and that took me back. You know, I remember Bob Gansler in Milwaukee. You know, so there's a lot more history to football in our football in Wisconsin than people know. So yeah, I'm proud of Daryl for helping reignite the community there, and that all you guys are fired up to have a team. So it's pretty cool to see.
Eric, I mean, you experienced a similar thing in Las Vegas too last year. How exciting is that to be a part of something new, you know, much like Daryl was in Madison last year?
Well, I mean, I think it's testament to kind of what we said earlier, as these little hot pockets of the country. We always knew they were there, but they just needed an opportunity to have a team to support. But look, Vegas, when I got here, not to how do I put this? So the first year was really about just making it a show. It was just all about just being different and almost a circus environment. I think it was probably 80-20 and 20 being the football side of things. Upon arrival, I took the job knowing that what I was getting into. I knew that there was still going to be a lot of that stuff, and I made a lot of concessions in the sense that I was willing to put up with some stuff that normally I wouldn't put up with simply because I wanted the job. This year, I think we flipped it. So we're still embracing our identity as some of the crazy stuff that goes along with Brett Lashbrook, our owner, and some of the things that he likes to do. but we've been able to really focus on the soccer side of things. So you do see it. You see the Vegas fans. You see that the passion that you knew was always there, and it's probably the same for you guys. This city in itself is really broken into three pieces. There's the downtown component, and then there's Henderson, which is just outside, and then there's Summerlin. And connecting those three is the hardest part. But we've really gotten to a point now where I feel like the club, because of we've been able to put a really good product on the field now, everybody can be proud of it. And that really is the goal for us to build a club that people can come watch the games and not just have a fun, going crazy, but also have a lot of pride in being associated with a football club that tries to do things right.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, John, for the question. Kyle Carr, up next.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. I had a question for all of you, and that one was, what have you taken from your playing careers that's translated into coaching, whether it's a style of play that you really like that you want to incorporate, or if it's just more of a formation that you liked? So I guess what things that you had during your playing career that you've taken over to your coaching career?
Daryl.
I'll start because my playing career was nowhere near what these guys was.
We can go in order, and then I'll go, and then Eric should go definitely.
Listen, for me, it was one, it was about competition, and two, it was about a lot of people always told me that I was not good enough to play, and that I couldn't play at a high level, that I would never play professionally, and that I was too short to play my position. I sort of, and still to this day, I sort of still coach with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. And it's because of, as coaches, we want to get to the highest level that we can, and we want to coach at a high level. But that being said, we want to be successful everywhere we go. And there's times where you're in situations with clubs that you're coaching that you can try to be successful, but there's going to be some things that hold you back. So what can you bring to the table that is going to help push your club over the top and elevate not just you as a coach, but your team, and what can we do to get better? So for me, it was always about coaching with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, because I didn't play in MLS. I didn't play for a national team. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and I went to a small NAIA school, and I played in the A-League, which at the time was the highest level up until 96, until MLS came. And by 96, even though I was young, again, I was, for a goalkeeper, I was shorter and probably wasn't going to get that many shots. And I had a really good chance through Mike Jeffries to get into coaching full time. So I called my playing career early. But the best part about that was I left on my terms. I could have kept going, and I could have kept fighting, and I could have kept trying. But I always knew I was going to be a coach. And so when Mike gave me the opportunity to join his coaching staff full time, and then he left really 1 year later, and I got the head coaching job in New Orleans. But again, even there, it was everybody telling you you're not going to succeed because you haven't played at a high level. So for me, it was always, with a chip on my shoulder, trying to be a better coach. And I've been fortunate that I've worked for a lot of good coaches, but also, like Eric said, I also worked for some coaches that I thought were great people, but also took lessons of what I would do better in certain situations. So for me, it was, I always had to compete, and I always had to play with a chip on my shoulder, because I was always told that you weren't going to evolve to anything.
Okay. Yeah, for me, my teams don't play like what I played like. I don't think I would. I wouldn't take me on my teams. But certainly experiences, but more than anything is this competitive will. I mean, that's, you know, Eric touched briefly, Daryl did too. Us three were together in Chicago, and I think it stokes the competitive fire of everybody, no pun intended, when we played for that team, because training sessions were like complete battles. And it was always about, you know, you couldn't sleep at night if you went home and your team didn't win on the day. And that sense of will and competitiveness, I think, is what's driven me always in this lifestyle. Because in the end, that's what this is. It's what we know. It's our job. Eric touched on a little bit. He went into broadcasting. Now he's into coaching because it's in his blood. But you wind up, this is what I know, you know. And they say to me here that I mention a lot mentality. And I do. We have a very clear style of play. That's apparent. But what makes any team unique, I think, is the type of mentality to be your best when it's the most difficult. And that's what difficult training sessions are like. That's what, you know, you try to prepare your players for all the time, is so that when the lights come on in the biggest stages, that they are ready to play at their best and fearless and really go after it. So it was partly in my nature always. I think it's been a driving quality behind my success, but in the end, that's also what makes it fun for me, is to motivate a group to be as good as they possibly can be.
Well, look, I know I'm going last because there's this belief that I had such a great career. I'll be the first one to say it. My career was tragic. I think that and the effect it has on me now as a manager is very simple. I mean, I broke my leg in 1994, and I had a plate and 8 screws in there ever since. So I can tell you when it's raining before I wake up. But practice and the training of all of that, and the rehab and just the pain that I was in as a player, a lot of people don't realize that and the guys that, when the league started in '96, were really expected to, they were trying to get blood out of a rock. And what ultimately happened to me is I fell apart. And when I got to Chicago, actually, was the first time I walked in a locker room and I just saw a team. I just saw guys that wanted to play for each other, that guys that actually, we had our differences and we had some different personalities in there and whatnot, but Bob had done such a good job of putting that together that there was a lesson within. You know, I remember the first thing that Bob said to me was, look, just shut the hell up and just, you know, learn from these guys. You know, and look, and you would think that a guy that's played 100 times for his country and all this stuff wouldn't need to be told that, but I really, really enjoyed that. So I came into a team where I needed to manage my body because I could hardly play. But as Jesse said, it wasn't that I would go to bed at night because my team lost as so much as like, God, I hope I'm able to practice tomorrow. I really hope that my body's going to cooperate and I get to be a part of something I love so much. So how does that affect me now? I manage my guys. I make sure that they understand that this is the greatest job in the world. And there's so many ways to screw it up. There, and you know, whether you abuse your body, where you don't get adequate rest, where you drink too much, or you party too much, or you think you're a bigger player than what you are. All those things that I experienced as a player, meaning when you play for the national team and you're dealing with all this responsibility and pressure to build a sport in a country that's seeing it for the first time. I looked at it, I mean, if you can imagine this, I played 42 games in 1996. So I never got a week off. I never had a chance to really catch my breath. There was a couple of times where I played on Saturday for my club team and on Sunday for my national team. That's just that stuff doesn't happen anymore. You know, there's a reason why Tab Ramos fell apart. There's a reason why I fell apart. And that's sad. So what I do now is I recognize those things in players that, and I try to be a constant reminder that this time is short. Enjoy every second of it, and if you love the game, then make sure you take care of the one thing that you need to have to play it, and that's your body. So that happened to me. I mean, mine was bad luck. I Gerhard Porschner in Stuttgart tackled from behind, and I was actually having a pretty good game. And it was in a moment, I was no longer a player that could just run past people. I had to change my game entirely because I didn't have the speed anymore. So it's something I always think about as a coach to make sure that I'm knowing when to push and when to pull and when to pull back, and make sure I manage these guys so they can optimize their time as players.
Oh, that's a great question, Kyle. Thanks.
Thanks.
So we got time for about one more. Nima, we'll give you the last question here today.
Sorry, was on mute. What's up, everyone? Thank you all so much for making time. It's absolutely wonderful to meet all of you. Jesse, this one's for you. I'd love to hear about the challenges of playing with a Salzburg team that can be vultured by bigger clubs. It almost feels like the better the club does in scouting and recruiting and training, the tougher the job gets for planning for the future. It kind of reminds me of like the old, PSV and Ajax and Feyenoord teams that seem to be constantly building and rebuilding. So I'm curious, what are some of the pros and cons of operating in that kind of environment? And how do you plan for the future ahead?
Yeah, so, you'd first have to even go back to, you could go back 6-7 years here, right? Because they've been doing this kind of thing for a while. But the turnover that we had in summer was incredible. We took a team that had gone to Europa League semifinals and had been together for 2 years, won 2 league championships in a row, was the most dominant team in the history of the Austrian Bundesliga, and sold 9 of the players for over 90 million euros. And then we had this younger group coming in that we thought was going to be good, but we didn't know. Like, I thought Erling Haaland would be a good player, but I wasn't sure that he was even going to be a starter. But we got together in the first 2 weeks of training camp, and you could see that there was something special coming. It's interesting when you work with top talented players, because it's not just their physical talents that make them unique. It's also their like intelligence. Like, even we have African players that come from almost nowhere, that when you start to talk about tactical concepts and development paths and what are their next steps, they can pick things up immediately and they know how to apply it. The word here they use is umsetzen, which is like put to practice. And so it's really, really cool when you can have a young group of players that you can mold and help and turn into something. It's almost like polishing these gems. It requires really being able to focus in on each individual and see each individual every day, what their mood is. A lot of these guys are 18, 19, 20 years old. They're in a different countries trying to speak a different language, living on their own, so there's so many different challenges to getting their lives right and their football right. But you're trying to look at all these individuals and try to help them all individually get a little bit better each day, like Daryl was talking about, but then also create this group concept where everybody commits themselves fully to the process of being as good as we can be as a group. Certainly when you have something like Champions League or Europa League or, these big carrots, then that's always helpful to give them goals that they can look forward to. And then we have a clear way. I think that's important as a coach. You have to have a plan. And people ask me, okay, so what is your plan specifically? And my response is, it's not one thing, it's everything, right? You have to have a style of play. You have to have a mental approach. You have to have a psychological approach. You have to have a way of talking in relationships. You have to have leadership qualities. You have to have give and take. You have to have, communication abilities. You have to have so many little things to help so many different people from different walks of life who speak different languages, and they're trying to come together to be one. But this is our world. This is football, right? And yes, it is a little bit different in Europe than in the US. I can say that, but in the end, it is also still people. And the more that I think you understand people and you can relate with people regardless of their background, I think the more you can get the most out of them. So I look and I swear to you, like, of course, losing Erling and Taki and a couple other players wasn't easy, but I always look at it as an opportunity for the next guy, and in New York, we traded Dax McCarty because we knew Tyler Adams was coming. We made a lot of unpopular moves because we knew we had to, because the next generation or the next player coming up in 2 years for sure was going to be better. And so we had to give them playing time. And that's something that's interesting too, is players can't really get that much better unless they play. So, there's a lot of challenges to it, but there's also challenge. If you have a veteran team, then you're a lot of times juggling egos and managing that. And you wind up doing that maybe more than coaching football. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I've gotten good at. It's kind of what I know now. And it's certainly what I really enjoy. So
thank you, Coach.
Kuba, let's get one more. Are you guys okay for one? Maybe get one more that all three can. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Eric and Daryl.
Listen, I'm good until 3:30. But yeah, we're good. I know Eric's got something, but yeah, let's keep going.
You guys can keep going all day. I got to do a 1 o'clock Instagram chat with one of my players who's stuck in England because his visa and we shut the borders down. So I gotta get on at 1 o'clock. But
yeah, keep going. Let's do it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, John, I know you had a follow-up question on the 2001 Fire team.
Yeah, before you go, Eric, if all three of you guys can chime in on this. I mean, what a bonkers coaching staff and roster that was with Bradley, obviously you, Daryl, Tom Sane, Wynalda, Marsch, Novak, Stoichkov, Razov, Wolf, Bocanegra, Armis, both Beasleys, Dima Kovalenko, Zach Thornton. How did you guys not win MLS Cup is what I'm asking.
I'm going to blame it all on Evan Whitfield and that stupid red card against LA. I'm not to pick on the guy, but damn it, we had it, man. We were playing LA off the park, and we just had a bad moment. That was the only position I really felt that it was so much because Vaughn would come in every once in a while, but everybody else, I think we really had a really clear understanding of how we wanted to play. I mean, Peter ran the show. Stoichkov would give us what he had. Ante is always going to be a phenomenal goal scorer, but the way that we played was actually tailored to the team that we were. So we would just kind of drop and get in a rest mode, but we would push the ball into certain places, and Armis would just clean up the mess and give it to whoever that was closest to him. Jesse would kind of sit in those little pockets and just spray it around, and the rest of those pieces, once they got going, was one hell of a team. It's to this. I remember just thinking of the same thing you just said. Like, how the hell did we not win that damn thing? But I can say without hesitation, that was the best team I was ever on in Major League Soccer, and it was the most fun I ever had.
Yes, someone sent me something actually yesterday that was kind of ironic that we were doing this call today, but I guess somebody had posted on something. Chicago Fire 1998 to 2003, would you consider that a dynasty? It talked about all the trophies we won and all the almost trophies we won. I go back to, I joined the club in 2000, and how we didn't win in 2000, how we didn't win in 2001, how we didn't win in 2003. 2003, it was a new coach, so there's some different things. But 2000, 2001, I mean, you go back before Eric got here in 2000, which was my first year, our three subs in MLS Cup were Lubos Kubik, DeMarcus Beasley, and Josh Wolf. Tony Miola stood on his head that day, and it was whatever. 2001, we were almost too good, I think. And it was weird because we all knew the semifinal was at Soldier Field. If we won that, we're going right to Columbus. And I still can't answer that question because I'm not 100% sure how we didn't get past LA. And I think, was that the year that we lost to LA in both?
And it was just heart-wrenching too. I mean, keep in mind also that was an odd scene with 9/11.
Right.
We had to take the little hiatus as well, and it may have knocked us off the rails to a certain extent. But
was also strange.
There were times there were games where if we decided to get angry collectively. I think Kansas City, when I think it was on July 4th, they were talking a lot of smack about how they were gonna, we're a better team. And I think it was Mo Johnston put something in my locker. I can't remember who it was. That it was a jigsaw puzzle, right? That basically said, we're gonna call you Jigsaw today because you go to pieces in a box. And it was like a little joke that they wanted to, play on me, right? We killed them 7-0. It was 6-0. And I remember Stoichkov came in and Novak came into that game. Novak didn't even start. And so those two guys come in and they're still angry that Bob sat them that day because it was too hot. It was too humid. It wasn't a good idea. Oh my God. But there were games like that where when we decided to really, and everybody was up for it, it may have possibly been one of the better teams that MLS has ever seen. It was special to be a part of it. I'll say that.
We had that season was you had to get to 5 points, this playoff format. There was a couple of years where the playoff format was strange. We lose the first one at home, right? Then we draw, or do we draw the first? We draw the first one. Okay, then we draw, and then we lose, in LA, and we lose at home, and we dominate. I mean, I swear to you, 3 playoff games where I've never dominated the team more, and we walked away with 1 point.
And Cienfuegos scored that miracle goal with his left foot from 50 yards out. It was just silly. I mean, it wasn't meant to be, but whatever. It's all things that fuel the fire now for me as a coach. I always kind of keep that in the back of my mind when things are going really well. That's where you always have to remind yourself that okay, there's going to be some tripwire here, so be ready for it.
You said you guys reminiscing. That was one of the teams I remember, from watching MLS in those early years. That was just amazing. And I think if you made a list of the top 5 teams who didn't win MLS Cup, that team is certainly in the top handful there. So
thanks for rubbing it in. I appreciate it. That's great.
Tim Gatti, do you have a question, Tim?
Yeah, thanks everybody. It's great to meet you and hear your stories. This question comes from my own experience right now as a 4th grade teacher adapting to remote learning. My question is, I'm curious, what are some of the methods or drills that you're needing to employ in order to work to coach your teams right now? And are there any innovative or unorthodox ideas that either you've been trying out or that you've heard of as working?
Let me go first because I got to go, guys. I apologize. But methodology is a huge component of what we do here, meaning that we always have 2 thoughts in our head, defensively, where should my body be, or offensively, where's the ball need to be? One of the great things that you can do, and I think this is something, it's a great lesson for younger players, is it doesn't always have to be pretty. It has to be effective. One of the drills that you can do with young kids, and I do this with my 11-year-old, is just making them go. If you roll the ball from maybe 25 yards out and just tell them, get to the ball as fast as you possibly can and shoot. There's no slowing down. What ends up happening is you start training your body to do things quicker than you're supposed to. I use the analogy all the time to my players. It's like, look, I'm giving you the keys to a car. This turn in the road says go 45 miles an hour. I'm asking you to crash. Go 70. Go too fast and crash the damn car, because you're going to get into a game and the game's going to ask for 35 miles an hour, right? Or it's going to ask for 60 miles an hour, and it's going to feel like 35 to you because you've done it. So the training methods that we use, we do everything fast. It has to be fast. It speeds up their thought process. Their technical ability has to follow. But with young kids, they have a tendency to, in the spirit of trying to do it right, they do it or do it perfectly. They're not doing it fast enough. Make them do things fast, make mistakes, fall down, just be effective. That's the only way you're going to get better. I hate to leave this group. You guys are such beautiful people. Jesse, hi to Kimmy, and especially Emerson, 18. Oh my God. Good luck with that.
We're getting old, Eric.
Awesome. Thank you,
I
Eric.
appreciate you coming on, bud.
And Daryl, keep doing what you do. It's nice to meet the Mingos. I love the name. Take care of Madison. Take care of your business out there in Europe. Everybody stay safe, please. Do what you're supposed to do to make sure that we get through this thing and become clean on the other side. But it was great.